Let's talk about a very different issue now, and it has to do with former President Trump, who has faced a host of different legal issues, but the legal environment for him is sort of shifting, if you will. Our Rick Newman has been watching that, and it's shifting because there was a surprise sort of pivot on a case that was initially potentially being brought against him in New York City, but then there are other legal issues for him elsewhere. So I know it's like pretty thorny here, Rick, but give us the 10,000-foot view.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, as always, with Trump. But the biggest development in recent weeks is the apparent end of that investigation by the New York District Attorney. Until the last few weeks, many people following this thought that investigation was the most serious legal threat Trump has ever faced in his 50 years as a businessman, supposedly looking at potential fraud within the Trump organization related to taxes and other things. But two senior prosecutors there have since resigned. And the new DA, Alvin Bragg, who just got elected to the post last year, he has not come out and said, no, this is over. But by all sights, it looks like this is just ending. And we don't really know why. So maybe we'll get more information on that in the future. Meanwhile, this does not mean that Trump is off the hook. And the other important case to be watching at this point is the one other criminal investigation we know about, and that seems to be taking place in Georgia. And this is related to Trump trying to find those votes that would have put him over the top and allowed him to win the state against Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election. So that did not happen, of course. Biden did win the state, but Trump did pressure many officials there to find votes. That's the phrase he used on one phone call that was recorded. And there's a prosecutor in Georgia who now has called a grand jury and is investigating what Trump did there. So no charges yet in that case. But that is the other criminal case we know about. And legal analysts I've talked to say that is very serious. It would be election fraud and racketeering and other things like that if the charges come. Then there are a variety of civil cases, which always seems to be the case with Trump. And still out there is this question of whether the Justice Department will prosecute Trump or any Trump supporters for their role in the January 6, 2021 insurrection at the Capitol. We have no word on that, but Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, still has almost 3 years to move on that. So he could be moving slowly but surely.
Well, and the latest development on that, Rick, speaking of, you mentioned Trump's comments in a phone call regarding the Georgia case. The focus for the January 6th inquiry now seems to be centering around some missing tape a la Watergate, which is just a bizarre parallel, right? That there were some phone calls, the phone log from January 6th. There's a big gap that's in those calls on that day, right?
Right. So this is the committee in the House that is controlled by Democrats still, that is investigating what happened on January 6th, asked for Trump's phone logs, and they got them, except there were several hours that were missing on January 6th itself, almost like, exactly as you point out, the 17-minute gap in the Nixon tapes from way back in the 1970s. So the thing to keep in mind here is that the House committee will hold hearings. It will issue a report almost certainly by the end of this year, but they don't prosecute. What that House committee would do is turn over its findings, everything it finds, to the Justice Department, and it would be the Justice Department that would make the decision to prosecute. This is very fraught politically because Trump, of course, all along has said that all these investigations into him are politically motivated. They're mostly coming from blue states, although I'd point out that Georgia investigation is not coming from a blue state. Republicans still control Georgia. But Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, he has to be really pretty sure that if he is going to bring charges against Trump, it's going to be something that he has a very high likelihood of being able to win in a legal proceeding. Because if he brings charges and he loses, it is going to look like what Trump says it is, which is politically motivated mudslinging. So I think that's why the Attorney General is being as careful as he probably is. But this is nowhere near over.